I was a victim too. At least my wife was. She had friends who were socialists.
Oh my God.
Well, we all make mistakes.
I recently did a video explaining the Matrix. I explained exactly what the Matrix was and what the purpose of it was. If you haven't seen this video, you should check it out. It may give you an understanding you've never had before. The other week, after I watched the Democratic debate, this was the one that was in this month of September 2019. After it ended, I had to just turn the television off and really take a pause. What I was witnessing was a complete mental transformation of the United States. This is quite off topic from my normal videos on this channel, but it's something that I'm not seeing being covered. There is not much truth nor understanding being given surrounding this topic, just a lot of political noise and confusion. Now, as you watch this video, please understand this is not a political video. I realize that this message may be hard to receive if you are only looking from a view on either side of our political divide. I am not speaking for the left or the right. I'm not a Republican or Democrat. I definitely am not a liberal, though. And though I am conservative, I am not what conservative means today in this political world. So understand that this is not about choosing a political side. So please try to keep your political defenses down and just hear me out. In this current world matrix, one method that is used on the people to provide a temperature check, or better yet, a mental examination for a nation, is using the deceptive democratic political system. I'm not talking about the Democratic Party, but the illusion that we have control over our federal government through the voting process. This political system makes people feel like they are in control, that they have a voice, and that their opinion really matters. It also allows the puppet masters to control the people's concerns and tells them the points that they should be concerned with. This democratic system quantifies for the puppet masters just how many people are really believing what this system is promoting to them. The more we engage and are drawn into the conflicts and the issues that they are promoting to us, the more that they know that we are believing their lies. They know that we are properly conditioned for the next step in their agenda. And the thing is, it's not always what we say or what we don't say. But I'm getting too deep too early. The political system is one of the biggest ways for them to gauge just how much we are believing their programming. So if you watch the debates and you are not really awake to their agenda and to what they really are trying to do, you don't really see and understand what is truly going on in this world. By following this supposedly democratic political system, no matter what side you have chosen, they are able to gauge if we are really ready for their next steps. Be clear, everything you are seeing is pure deception. What I want to show you is how we, as a mass population, have been conditioned to accept our own chains. The majority of us are modern-day slaves that are literally placing our own shackles on our legs and arms. We are demanding them, actually. I want to break down some of the mental games being played with us, as well as give proper understanding of what socialism really is, so that no matter what you may feel emotionally, you are still able to understand things educationally. Let's begin. So, one way of changing the world is by dumbing down its population. If you take away a population's ability to critically think for themselves, the ability for them to analyze and scope the complete terrain, the complete chessboard, then you can easily guide the population down the path you desire for them with little dissent. It's because they are not able to critically analyze what is happening to them. When a population is dumbed down, you can get them to make decisions based off their emotions and not based off of analytical thinking. And when you have conditioned a population to behave this way, then they are yours for the taking. One of the most deceptive things about this dumbing down is that the puppet masters have not really taken away the people's belief in their mental abilities. A completely dumbed down population can still think they are the smartest generation in history. You can take many of the top doctors, lawyers, or engineers of today, ones who were straight A students at the top of their class, but they are still dumb when it comes to the way the world truly operates. Their grade of A in school is only based on how well they maneuver and are able to achieve success in the system of the matrix. Though they are at the top of their class, they still don't use their critical thinking skills to assess what is really going on. It's not really hard to imagine it if you understand that the puppet masters control our education, our curriculums in school, what the educational process even is. They control the economy and jobs, our social organizations, religious institutions, and our politics. That statement of cash rules everything around me is very true. But if they have spent a lifetime creating the game board and the rules, how would you ever know that you are in a game? It's like the movie The Truman Show. Like The Matrix, this movie was based on non-fiction facts told in a fictional way. Truman never knew that the world he was in was not real. He did not know that it was all a television show, because the corporation owned every facet of his life. This is the complete way our lives are today. We all live in The Truman Show, where a top class of people control the world like it's a television show or game board. This shouldn't be hard to understand or believe when we see news articles like this one from The Guardian that says, the world's 26 richest people own 50% of the world's wealth. That was in January of this year, 2019. Understand, 26 people out of 7.5 billion people control half of the world's wealth. If you ever played Monopoly, you would know that the game is over if you're not one of the 26. Anyways, the point that I'm making is that to subdue a nation, their goal was to control the minds of the population, so that instead of changing the world by force, the world would ask for it willingly.
The war taught us much. Humanity needed to surrender its freedom willingly. Hydra created a world so chaotic that humanity is finally ready to sacrifice its freedom to gain its security.
They have successfully done this in the United States, and I dare to say the rest of the world, but I only live in the United States. They have dumbed the population down where we don't fully understand things that were once common knowledge to generations of the past. We are at a point in time where words or issues that used to be completely bad, something we all collectively knew was not right for us. These words and or issues today are now something that we are desiring and will fight to have. It's very similar to making poison seem acceptable and okay, and that's what they're doing. They make poison seem like it's a good thing. They make slavery and control seem like it's in our best interest. It's like the commercial about advertising the acceptable amount of lead in our water.
Waters from all across the country. Let's start with something from Colorado. This contains an amount of lead that is well within what standard limits deem drinkable.
Does anybody want to drink lead? Would you want to drink a fresh cup of lead?
When it's advertised to us like this, we would instantly rebel against it. So why not dumb down the population over generations, controlling them and teaching them that makes them not really know what lead really is? Generations later, they will willingly accept it, maybe even ask for more lead. That's what they are completely doing to us today in many aspects of life. What we are talking about here is the acceptance of a new system for this country, a new future for this country. But it's really not just for the country, but for the world. The puppet masters just want to know that we will be willing to accept these things when the system they've been preparing for us is implemented. This is not just something specific to the United States, because they are using the same playbook all across the world. This strategy is like I just showed in that Captain America clip. Instead of having us fight and rebelling against it, they make it so that we are asking for it, demanding it. And actually, they will have us fighting against those that are trying to stop it or fight against it. It's complete manipulation. And the worst part is that we don't even know what we're fighting against. Like, take the Democratic debate that just passed. The candidates on stage wanted us to place our arguments and disagreements against Donald Trump only, as if what we only need to be doing is fighting against Donald Trump.
There's enormous opportunities once we get rid of Donald Trump.
5 people have talked, some repeatedly, on this subject, And not once have we talked about Donald Trump. Getting it, but let's focus on the end goal. If we don't get Donald Trump out of office, he's going to get rid of all of it.
We have a white supremacist in the White House.
They repeated this many times in the debate because this is what they wanted programmed into us. But what is actually happening is that while you feel you are fighting against Donald Trump, you are actually fighting against your whole way of life. It's order out of chaos. The chaos is Donald Trump, and the order is if you want to get rid of him, you have to accept a new system. And that's what the candidates are saying. In order to change and be rid of Donald Trump and his supporters, they have to fundamentally change the system. It's manipulation. Now let me say that I am not a Donald Trump supporter. Don't misunderstand me. I am just breaking down the mental programming that they are using against us. All that I have explained so far is the mental programming that they are giving the left being the supporters of the Democratic Party, as well as those who do not really declare themselves as Democrats, but just want to see the end of Donald Trump's power. But there is programming on the right too, and it's just as extreme. It's extreme because the right, those that are Republicans and or Donald Trump supporters, feel that Donald Trump has been placed by God to stop the New World Order, or at least slow it down. They look at how much the media and pretty much the majority of voices today speak against him. And because these supporters were so against Obama's presidency and all that Obama did to bring the world closer, they think that Donald Trump is doing God's bidding. Very much like King Cyrus of Persia set the Israelites free and let them rebuild the temple. Watch episode 11 of my History of Religion series to understand this more. But they are just as programmed, because the truth is that Donald Trump is simply doing what he was placed in office to do. He was placed in office by God, but it's the little g, not big G. His job is simple. It's to create chaos and create disorder, so that the ideologies that support him are never to be seen again when the world changes. If you take all that Donald Trump is said to support, capitalism, populism, meaning all nations for themselves, gun control, closed borders, conservative values, well, somewhat, and believe it or not, Christian values. Now, I don't believe this. I'm just saying what the programming is promoting. When you take all these things and just place it all under the basket of Donald Trump, when the masses defeat Donald Trump, they will defeat all of that ideology as well. No more nations placing themselves above the good of the world. No more closed borders. Now we need to be a global community. No more gun control. Guns need to be controlled by the government. Whatever Christian values that the world is still holding on to by a thread needs to go away. And instead of capitalism, we need to accept a new economic system, which is socialism. And this is what the programming of this current United States presidential election season is promoting. Doing away with Donald Trump is doing away with the old ways the world was, and acceptance of a new world system. By the way, this new world will not be administered by the United States, but by a world government. So it doesn't matter who you want to be in the White House. It's not about who will be president. It's really about the question, is the American population ready for the full change? The answer seems to be a very clear yes. And the thing is that if the leading capitalist nation of the world is ready for this new socialist system, then the world is ready as well. As I watched the debate, I was discussing it in a group chat with some of my friends I grew up with. Some of them were very eager to accept anyone on the stage because of their deep dislike of Donald Trump. They even liked Yang the most because he was promising them $1,000 per month if he got elected. A completely socialist ideal of universal basic income. I've always grown up with the understanding that money is never free. But today, we have been conditioned to accept it without thought. As I tried to explain that this was socialism, the group couldn't stop talking about Trump and the images of babies being locked up. They kept saying, "You think any of these candidates would do this?" Or, "If Hillary was in office, she would never do such a thing." And they never let off of it. That was all that mattered. I could not really explain my overall view because they wanted change from Donald Trump, and they felt the answer was on that stage. This is just a small example of the mental programming they are doing to us. We will accept socialism, legal slavery, just so we can get guaranteed income from the government and not have Donald Trump in office. It's crazy, but this is what our reality is. So, I started this video with a scene from the movie Clue. This was a movie that came out in 1985. Make that movie today, almost 35 years later, and that joke would never see itself in the movie. It wouldn't even be funny. Almost 3.5 decades, and the viewpoint of this very powerful economic system has completely been changed. What was once something that was viewed as highly disfavorable is now viewed as something highly desired. Before I go into what socialism is, I want you to understand what the overall programming is that they are feeding to you. For the masses, they are not saying, let's do away with capitalism and accept socialism. For at least 10 years or more, they have been promoting it as the rich against the poor, the haves versus the have-nots. There's even a television show by Tyler Perry with that name. It's us versus them. They always explain it how the wealthy are taking advantage of the system, and then they promote anger with those of us that obviously are not wealthy and are not ever going to be on that level. So it's always what the haves possess and how they are getting over on us have-nots. So as this continues to be promoted, the have-nots just have anger, and they are tired of those that have winning. So they demand change. They want a Robin Hood, one that will steal from the rich and give it to them. And so they attack capitalism. The puppet masters have just put a name or target to the problem, but don't really describe what the solution will be. Make people upset enough, they will accept any other option as long as it's not what they have right now. It's like Michael Moore's documentary, Capitalism, A Love Story. He was so intriguing on creating and displaying the problem of capitalism and what is wrong with it, but he spent very little time explaining his solutions and the pros and cons of them. This is what mental conditioning is. They want you to accept that there's a problem, and they want us so tired of the problem that we demand a solution. But they don't really go over the pros and cons of what the solution is. They do it deceptively. Like in the debates, the candidates are just presenting the pros, and the cons that they present are only for the rich, so we should not think twice about it. We have been conditioned to just demand that our elected officials fix the problem, and we prove this by voting for them. So when they fix it, then they say they are just giving the voters what they asked for. But when the change comes, the same voters will say, hey, I didn't know this change came with this. Now, again, let me be clear. Just because I am saying this does not make me a capitalist. I am in no way saying that the things that goes on within capitalism today are right. Capitalism only works for a short period of time and only for a small amount of people. Just like in Monopoly, you only have a chance until someone buys all the properties and puts houses and hotels on them. Until that point, you have a chance. But later, when the board is completely brought and you own nothing, you're done. Game is over for you. The game is only between those now that own the properties and how they work deals together. So I'm not advocating capitalism, but I can appreciate the lack of government intervention that capitalism provides me versus systems like socialism, communism, or fascism. I'm not an advocate for capitalism. I'm simply warning against what moving away from capitalism will lead to. So, what is socialism? Let me explain this before I'm accused of clickbait. I'm going to first be a little technical because you have to start there. This is economics, a class I'm sure many of us hated in school. So, in economics, there are consumption goods. These are goods that are acquired or that you get for consumption, to use. These are goods that you get so that you can use them. Consumption goods are things like food, drinks, clothing, cars, etc. Anything you acquire to be used. The next term to know is a capital good. Capital goods are goods used to produce consumption goods. A capital good can be a machine in a factory, things you use to create consumption goods. Now, in the economic systems like socialism, capitalism, communism, the difference between the systems all has to do with who owns and controls the capital goods. Again, the goods that are used to get the consumption goods. Let's first look at capitalism. Now, in capitalism, or a free enterprise system, capital goods are owned and controlled by private owners, meaning that in order to get that bottle of Coca-Cola, the company owns the factory used to produce the soda, and they also control the factory. The government does not control them or own them. That is capitalism in a nutshell. The strongest capitalistic society is where the government does not interfere at all with how companies are run. But obviously, because of corruption and greed, the government in time usually steps in with regulations and rules. This continues on and on until we have a socialist economy. Now, a socialist economy is where the government owns the capital goods and controls the capital goods. So let's use Venezuela as an example, as we all know that they are a socialist nation. We will use the company Citgo as an example. This is a major oil company that you see in the United States, but is owned by the socialist nation of Venezuela. The government of Venezuela owns the factories and equipment, the complete business that produces and refines the oil. They own and control the capital goods. And that's just an example of socialism on a very specific scale. The overall scope of socialism is that all of capital goods are owned and controlled by the government. So maybe if you don't own a business, you're maybe like, well, none of this applies to me. So let's take one step further and look at what a capital good really is in the eyes of the puppet masters. If you own a factory with much equipment to produce your consumption goods, like I just shared, the factory and the equipment are the capital goods. But can the factory and equipment just run themselves? Now, I'm not talking about artificial intelligence and robotics of today, because that makes the case a little deeper. But can a factory with industrial equipment run itself? Obviously not. You need people to work the capital goods. Without people, the capital goods are useless. So what we don't understand in these economic systems are what the capital goods really are. It's easy to just link this all to businesses and enterprise, to factories and farming. But in reality, the real view the puppet masters hold is that people are considered the true capital goods. People are used to acquire money, which is actually the true consumption good, money. And this is what is missing when trying to understand the economic system of socialism. The consumption good is money, and the capital goods are people. So let's go back to capitalism. In the United States, under capitalism, nobody is required to produce. If you desire to be homeless and not earn, that is your right to do. Now, we obviously know that that is not what the majority of people choose to do. But in this country, there is not an obligation to work. But if you don't work, you don't eat. But it's still not like if you don't work, you go to jail. In capitalism, you're responsible for your own self. In regards to capitalism, as a capital good, you are owned and controlled by yourself. Nobody can tell you how to live and what to do. Now, as America began to embrace socialistic ideas, the boundaries of socialism and capitalism started to get crossed, and certain people began becoming controlled by the state, but not necessarily owned yet. So, if someone was now on welfare and receiving assistance, now they had to give up certain controls and provide the government with more access into their lives. The support and assistance they are given comes at a price. In full-out socialism, the humans, which like I said are the capital goods, the humans are owned and controlled by the state. The government is running all the businesses and controlling the enterprises and responsible for bringing in the consumption goods, which like I said, is the money. The government is responsible for acquiring the money and resources, and then they distribute the wealth to the citizens of the country. That's what a redistribution of wealth is. That's socialism. Obama used to talk about this all the time. The government taxes the enterprises and high-earning individuals at a very high tax rate and takes the taxes and distributes the money to the people. And this is what the American public is asking for. Basically, because the wealthiest individuals in the country are controlling all the wealth and not distributing it effectively enough, the government needs to step in and tax them more and provide more assistance to the have-nots. And because the have-nots are struggling, this sounds like the best idea. But what is not explained to the general public about accepting this transformation into socialism is that once accepted, you give up control and the system gets locked in place. In order for the government to provide for you, you must accept the forms of control that they choose to administer their programs. If they want you to have a national ID card, you must have one. If they want it to be in the form of a chip, you must accept it, or don't be a part of this system. If they want everyone to have health care, they need to control the foods we eat and how much exercise we do. Because now, if you're overweight and not taking care of yourself, you're costing the taxpayer money. We all must have our vaccination doses and have regular mental checkups to ensure we won't harm the public or ourselves. These are the kind of controls that they can implement, and much more. Under socialism, we can't choose to not work, because they are paying us monthly income that comes with conditions. In socialism, we are owned and controlled by the government. And here's the biggest part to it. Your economic status is locked in place. In capitalism, there is a middle class. The upper class are those that own all the industries. This is the billionaire class. And the lower class are those that are at the lowest income levels, many of whom are on government assistance. Basically, those who make under $250,000 a year. I believe that was Obama's threshold. But there is a middle class as well. Those who are above the 250,000 threshold, but under 100 million. In socialism, there will be no more middle class. There is either upper class or lower class, and it's very hard for you to come out of either. So if you're rich, you're gonna stay rich, and if you're poor, you're gonna stay poor. It will always be the haves and the have-nots. Escaping out of the class of the have-nots is extremely difficult. There is no more American dream, though it really has been dead for a long time, just unrealized. The point is that this is a legal form of slavery, and it never works. Those who advocate for socialism frequently justify their position by declaring that they are doing so in the name of the poor, the workers, the aged, or any other minority deemed to be voiceless in the society, and hence unable to be in a position of power to be in the upper class. And so they advocate for the right to take and divide property. And that's what they're doing, taking others' property and dividing it to the people. And that control gets deeper and deeper. George Bernard Shaw, a leading socialist of his day, wrote a book entitled The Intelligent Woman's Guide to Socialism. In this book, he spoke about socialism. He writes, "I also made it quite clear that socialism means equality of income or nothing. And under socialism, you would not be allowed to be poor. You would be forcefully fed, clothed, lodged, taught, and employed, whether you like it or not. If it were discovered that you had not the character and industry enough to be worth all this trouble, you might be executed in a kindly manner, but whilst you were permitted to live, you would have to live well." You see, because the government is providing for you, the right to life becomes a privilege for you. Maybe that reminds you of the 2008 election when Sarah Palin was warning about Obama's death camps. The government can choose what they want to support and who they want to support. If they feel that it's costing the government too much money to take care of the elderly, they can change that. Socialism is an economic system of total control, and embracing it means that we are embracing our own chains of slavery. Again, they could only accomplish this with an uneducated, dumbed-down public. And it's sad to say that they have clearly accomplished it. Because the debate today within the people is not whether our country would support socialism or not. The debate now is which socialists will lead the revolution. Again, the programming is, in order to beat Donald Trump and his ideologies, we must accept socialism. That's what they advocate for. But the end of all this is that this socialist government will not be carried out fully by the United States. It's impossible. The nation literally cannot afford to do so. The minute our government decides to take on any more of these socialist proposals, it's an instant implosion of debt. Who would lend us money when we keep spending more than we make? And that's the thing the candidates know as well. This promotion of socialism is mental conditioning, not a political revolution. We are just being mentally conditioned to accept the economic system of the New World Order, as well as make all those who carry the ideology of Donald Trump to be an enemy of the world. It's always hard to share subjects like this in a brief video, because how do you fit so much crucial information in a video like this? And there are things that need to be covered just so a full understanding might be had. For those who do not truly understand my point and want to bring a Christian perspective to it, those that like to bring up the point that the first church was a form of socialism, understand you are correct, because everyone gave to the church and the church divided it equally amongst the members. That is and was a beautiful thing. This is the type of economic system I would promote, but this is not what is being proposed today. The government will be the ones taking the wealth and redistributing it, and this government has nothing to do with the true kingdom of Elohim. So you should always leave that view out of it. The government is not the church. For those that still say that anything is better than Donald Trump, please understand this is a controlled attitude and view. You have been conditioned to feel this way, also that they can legally take more of your rights away and have you mentally accepted. Now, there's a lot more to socialism than just the economic parts of it, but this video would be too long to go into it all. I know this is a different video than most that follow this channel are used to, and I'm not sure how it will be received, but it's something I really just had to get off my chest. My desire is to educate the masses on what is being seen today, so that you can understand the mental conditioning that is being presented to us. The last election, when Bernie Sanders came on the scene, he presented himself as a democratic socialist, which is just a fancy way of saying that he's a socialist. But when I raised this view to my friends that Bernie Sanders was a socialist and they were accepting socialism, they would give a rebuttal that he was a democratic socialist, not a true socialist. That is a stupid view. But many people had it, not just my friends. Today, Joe Biden clearly called Bernie Sanders a socialist, and the crowd barely moved.
Well, let me tell you something. For a socialist, you got a lot more confidence in corporate America than I do.
That's because what was once a bad word is something on the opposition, now is something that is deemed not that bad. Understand, you get nothing for free in this world. Do not hand your liberties and freedoms away willingly. You can't stop this train though. This video will not stop the transformation of this country and this world. That is not my goal or intent. I simply want to awaken anyone that may not have looked at things from this vantage point. This New World Order is coming regardless if you want it or not. There is no option for revolution against the system. Our only option is to surrender to Yahshua the Messiah, the Savior sent from Yahweh, who paid the punishment for our sins. Your only option is Him. So make a commitment to serve Him today. I pray that eyes are a little more opened and awakened, and that many people get off the train to this legal slavery. These are things you've heard about in George Orwell's book, 1984. This type of system. But it will not be completely realized until the full revolution. Surrender to the Messiah before this and live for His will. Set your mind on things above, not on the things on the earth. Colossians chapter 3, verse 2. Live your life for the Father and be blessed. Okay, thanks again for watching. If this has blessed you, please make sure to like it and share it. I pray that this educates a great deal of people. If you have not done so already, do not forget to subscribe to this channel. I upload every Friday. Don't forget to follow this ministry on Facebook and Instagram. As always, I'd like to thank all who support this ministry. Your contributions truly bless this ministry, and I'm thankful and humbled by your support. Thank you for being a blessing. Okay, thanks again everyone for watching. Be strong, be ready, and be blessed. I love you all.